Hey guys, what's up? I'm Jack and I am yet another Let's Player here on YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time for what I consider to be the greatest Crash Bandicoot game ever made. Not Crash 2, not Crash 3, not It's About Time. It's Crash Bandicoot, the Wrath of Cortex.
A Universal Interactive Studios production. Developed by Traveller's Tales. Crash Bandicoot, the Wrath of Cortex.
Indeed, yes. Unpopular opinion. I genuinely do think that this is the best Crash Bandicoot game ever made. There is a personal bias. It's the only Crash game I grew up with. But even after playing all the others, I see its problems. It's definitely got enough of them. But I still enjoy this more than Crash 1, 2, 3, way more than Twin Sanity, more than the more recent Crash 4. To me, this will always be the actual Crash 4. So let's give ourselves a name. Chips. Let's go with that. Let's go with Chips. Because this totally wasn't my third try at trying to record this game, and I totally didn't call myself Lemon and Melon before. Right, but yes, as you can see through this, it is the PlayStation 2 version, which is pretty infamous for its loading screens. I think it's something to do with what version you're playing, like the earliest versions of it have really long load times. I never really had a problem with these, except for this one. This is the only one that goes on for this long. This one goes on forever, but all of the others, it's not so bad. But I will say, this introduction is freaking long. So brace yourselves, because this is going to take a while. And it's really not that well animated. Like I said, I will acknowledge the issues, but also the good parts, of which there are many.
Imbeciles! Fools! Nincompoops! Can't you idiots do anything right? According to this, your track record for spreading evil is pathetic! Uka-Uka, it's not our fault! That wretched Bandicoot is to blame! I will not let anything stand in the way of evil. Especially not a brainless orange marsupial. Crash must be eliminated!
Uka-Uka, need I remind you that Crash always finds a way to defeat us? Maybe he's just too good for us.
Enough excuses! You 5 idiots need to come up with one good plan! Or else... How do I get into these situations?
There must be something we can come up with. Say, Doctor, haven't you been tinkering with some kind of new secret weapon in your laboratory?
I don't know what you're talking about, Entropy.
Dr. Cortex! I think he's referring to this super secret weapon you've been laboring over day and night since the last time Crash defeated you.
Enough bickering! Do we have a plan? Well, in my scientific endeavors, I've been able to create a genetically advanced super weapon of unbelievable strength. But the power source is the final missing crucial element. Elements. Yes, the elementals. Right, the elementals, that's it. If released, their destructive energy could create enough power to bring my secret weapon to life. We'd have a weapon capable of crushing mountains, demolishing entire cities, and wiping Crash Bandicoot off the face of the earth forever! Get ready to face my wrath, Crash Bandicoot! What's happening? No, it cannot be. Oh, no!
What's going on? Oh no! Crash! Look out!
Is everyone all right? It appears that my evil twin brother Uka-Uka is up to his no-good tricks again. I must find out what he is planning. I'll meet up with you later.
Hello, my feeble brother.
You have gotten my attention, Uka-Uka. What kind of diabolical scheme do you and Dr. Cortex have planned this time?
No schemes, just some old familiar faces dropping by for a visit.
No, not the elementals. Uka-Uka, why did you release them? Don't you know what happened the last time they were free?
So they were responsible for a few earthquakes, floods, and that little ice age a couple of centuries back. You worry too much, brother.
You cannot restrain them, Uka-Uka. They are far too dangerous. This could spell disaster for us all.
On the contrary, Aku-Aku. It spells disaster for you and that precious planet you care so much about. Destroy him!
You won't get away with this.
Who's going to stop us?
Crash, Coco, it is just as I feared. Uka-Uka and Dr. Cortex have freed a group of destructive masks known as the Elementals. We must find a way to stop them before they destroy the Earth and all of its inhabitants. The only way to stop the Elementals' destructive nature is to imprison them with the use of ancient crystals. Each elemental can be returned back to their hibernation state with a total of 5 crystals. We must act quickly. Coco, what is the status of the new portal chamber you've been working on?
It's almost finished. A few little adjustments here and there, and it'll be ready to go.
Well done, Coco. This gives us the ideal opportunity to test it. We must hurry.
Okay, all systems are ready and operational.
It's time we evened up the odds in our favor.
Whew, this intro is long, and by the way, it's not even over yet. We have this loading screen, and then there's more. There are so many things to unravel from that intro. All, most of them not good things, so we'll be honest. Again, I'll say this is the best Crash Bandicoot game, but it has problems. This game was in development for about a year, and it shows.
Crash Bandicoot, my old nemesis. How the heck are you? Still gathering crystals? Old habits die hard, don't they? My days are being spent on something much more intriguing. Meet Crunch, my newest creation.
This is the creature who keeps sabotaging your master plan? Ha! You gotta be kidding. I'll exterminate this field rat in no time.
Now, Crunch, your time with Crash will come soon enough. Isn't he brilliant? A testament to my true scientific genius. A real Bandicoot warrior. Unlike you, Crash. Oh well, we all make mistakes. Ta-ta for now.
Alright, now we're ready to begin, sort of. Welcome to the warp room. It's kind of like the one in Crash 3. As you can see, certain areas are blocked off. This doesn't hurt you, but it's fun to do. I have so many questions right now, but this is the first warp room. We have Arctic Antics, Tornado Alley, Bamboozled, Wizards and Lizards, and Compactor Reactor. Because I am not one for originality in any way, we're going to begin with level 1. I always begin with level 1.
What are you looking at, fuzzhead? I'm Rok-o, the Earth Elemental. Uka-Uka and Dr. Cortex woke me from my captive slumber, and now I'm free to pulverize whatever gets in my way. Oh, don't even think about collecting those crystals, Runt. Because if you do, I'm gonna bury you alive.
Right, so that's our warning from Biff from Back to the Future there. They did get celebrity voices to voice the elemental masks. I currently cannot remember the actual actor's name, but I'm sure I could look that up and just put some text on the screen right here just to say who it actually is. Right, level 1, Arctic Antics. But before that, let's just go through a few things whilst also explaining what is going on here and how this game works. Let's do that part first. So, Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex is often said to just basically be Crash Bandicoot warped with more gimmicks. A criticism I never entirely got because I always just looked at Crash Bandicoot warped as Cortex Strikes Back with more gimmicks. So it's essentially Cortex Strikes Back with even more gimmicks. And there are some good ones, there are some bad ones. Thankfully this isn't the case here. This is just a straightforward level, just platforming. The levels are bigger, they tend to be a bit wider, and one thing I will immediately praise the hell out of is the control. This game controls beautifully. Admittedly, my first attempt at doing this, it was the first time I played the game since the Insane Trilogy came out. And I played that so much, recently going after all the Platinum Relics in the game for the first time probably wasn't helping matters. The control felt a bit weird, but I was quickly able to adjust. I've played the hell out of this game. It controls wonderfully. Crash he's got the same moveset as he did before. He still has his tornado spin, his crawl, his slide. The slide jump doesn't quite work the same as it did before. Like if you slide over the edge of something, you do tend to fall rather than hover in the air. But he still has the slide jump. But again, it does feel a little bit off. The slide jump does feel off, but the rest of it is all fine. It's great, in fact. He still has the belly flop. Still has his tornado spin. Yeah, it's Crash Bandicoot. It's the same way we've known him since Crash Bandicoot 2. And everything is here and accounted for. We've lost all the power-ups. They've randomly disappeared and we've got to collect them all again. They're all in the game, along with one other one. The penguins have been changed. Penta Penguin looks different here. He's got eyebrows. He's got a funny shaped head. He's like a rock hopper penguin or something like that. The ice physics. I know it sounds horrifying that the first level of a Crash Bandicoot game is the ice level, but the ice physics are so much better because they were awful in Crash 2. Absolutely awful. And in Crash 3. On the few occasions where you had ice physics, like on the oil sections of the Egyptian levels. Aku-Aku. Get 3 of him and you become invincible for a limited time. Admittedly, not as good here. I love the music, but it doesn't make you run any faster. You're not given a super large hitbox, and it only lasts, I don't even think it lasts half the time as it does in the previous games. So Aku-Aku is a bit of a letdown. What have these seals got on their heads? I've never been able to work it out. They look like party hats. Hey, buddy. That's a fascinating place to ski right there. That's really the only hazard they could think of. Right, first level of the game, we already have a death route. Now, each death route does have an actual exit. They kind of just want you to play through the death route and that's it. But trying to make some of these jumps is actually really tricky. Like that. You gotta get absolute perfect... what's the word I'm looking for? Perfect placement. Perfect position. That's the word I'm looking for. If you don't make the jumps, that's it. So yeah, it is a bit of a flawed design. Once you get the double jump, it's perfectly fine. But if you don't have that, it is annoying. It's very easy to miss. Again, this is my third attempt at trying to record this, and wouldn't you know that the first 2 times I was successful, I still went and committed suicide, just because I didn't want to play through the entire level from the beginning again. This is what everybody does. It's like if you're playing the first level of Crash 2. You can go through the entire level without breaking a single box, grab the blue gem, and then kill yourself, because you haven't broken any checkpoints, and then you can go through the level normally, breaking all of the boxes this time. Death routes work the same way as they did before. As long as you don't die in the level, it will be available. Exactly how many attempts you get is something I was never sure about. Because I know in Crash 2, once you have stepped on the death route, you have unlimited tries. But I think that was changed in Crash 3. Specifically, it was changed for the POW region of Crash 3. where I think you only get so many tries, and it's the same here. But the number of tries you get seems to vary. Sometimes I can get like 5 tries, sometimes I'll get like 2 tries. So I don't know how it works, or if it's something like maybe as long as you die on the death route, you're fine. Because the death route is about to disappear in a minute. I did die, I messed up one of these jumps. I can't remember which jump I messed up. In fact, I think, if I recall... Yeah, did you see how fast he fell into the water then? But I don't know if it's because I wasn't on the death route. Maybe that's why it didn't count. The death route's disappeared now. Now it just appears as a green outline. Usually you get way more than 1 attempt, but yeah, it's disappeared. It is possible to backtrack through the death route. That's tedious, and why would you do that? When is backtracking ever a good thing in Crash Bandicoot? You can jump on the mammoths to get extra lives. But anyway, going back to that, the opening cutscenes. Firstly, what happens to the animations? They are somehow worse than the PS1 game. Secondly, Cortex's magnificent eyebrows. They are amazing. And I believe if you're playing other versions of the game, because this was the first multi-platform Crash game, or at least the Gamecube version, I think Uka-Uka's aura does actually have like an outline around him. You don't see that here, thankfully, but it does have like a red outline. And if you're playing the Xbox version, Crash and Coco actually do have fur textures. But the GameCube and Xbox versions also have way shorter loading times. So if you're going to play the game, Xbox is what I would probably be recommending. Because I think the GameCube version does have some sound issues. I don't know what those issues are. This is all I know. PS2. That's all I'm familiar with. That's all 3 gens. So we don't even get the crash dance. He just does a super jump. How disappointing. The second thing, why is this warp room here? It's like, what I gathered from that cutscene where Uka-Uka is explaining things to Crash and Coco, I don't think they've ever heard of the elemental mass. So why has Coco been building this, and where is it? Is it underground? Is it in a secret building? Where is this place? It's like, why did she build it? Like, just think, I'm going to build this warp chamber so we can gather crystals from these... to imprison these masks that I've never heard of, and that I won't hear about until in the future. So, why does this place exist? And how about that image of the door opening before we get to the warp room, which is clearly a still image of the character silhouettes, and there's even a big white mark in the top right corner of the screen. This game was rushed. It's absolute. It really does show. I mean, the previous games were made in only about a year of development, but this time we're dealing with new hardware, multi-platform stuff, like multi-console release, different developers. It went through quite a number of issues. Originally it was going to be a more of a open, free-roaming kind of Crash game, but when they went through all the issues, they decided, let's just play it safe, which, you know, is a smart idea. Why wouldn't you do that? And this was the result. There's quite a lot of jank. There's a number of issues, glaring issues. But also a number of good things. Again, the control. And that includes this thing. This is the Atlas Sphere. I don't think it was... I can't remember what the first game to actually call it. I think... Because this thing comes back in one of the Game Boy Advance games. I think there it's called the Atmosphere. So that's essentially what this thing is. Controls very nicely. The controller is constantly vibrating if you have that on. But yeah, it controls perfectly fine. The physics are great. Admittedly, because all you're doing is rolling around, these aren't exactly the most interesting of levels. In fact, I would probably go as far as to say this is the best one. But it controls decently. There is a pathway just down to the side there. It's got nothing but nitro crates. That's where you go for the time trials. But yeah, Bamboozled. It's only the beginner level for the Atmosphere, so it's not exactly going to be difficult. Whoops. Just try going after a boxer you might have missed if you're going uphill. Oh, I wonder where I'm supposed to go. If only there was an arrow pointing to where I needed to go. And that's it. That's Bamboozled. Yeah, okay. So the loading screens are prevalent. Again, I don't think that they're really that bad. I guess this just isn't the original release of the game. I mean, it isn't. It's the Platinum Hits release. But I don't know what these things were like on the original version of the game. I dread to think. Are they all as long as that opening load time? Alright, time for Wizards and Lizards, our first of many chase levels in this game.
You want a piece of me, Bandicoot? Huh? Huh? Do ya? Huh? Wuss.
Yeah, the elementals don't really do anything. Despite being responsible for a few earthquakes, floods, and that little ice age a couple of centuries back, they don't really do anything. They just show up, in Crash 3 style, talking to you before you begin a level, and then that's kind of it. In fact, really, when you're in these warp chambers, a lot of the time, I don't really know what the levels actually have to do with said elemental. When we get to the water levels, that one makes sense. They all make sense. One's a little bit questionable, but there's still water there. But these are supposed to be Earth. You can't kill these knights by spinning into them. You can either jump on top of them or slide. Wizards are back. But yeah, I don't really know what a lot of this has to do with Earth. Like, what is this to do with Earth? This is just a castle. In fact, this looks more like it would work better with fire rather than Earth. The Ice Age, well, sorry, that's air. The entire warp chamber for the air elemental is ice. So, I don't know what ice has got to do with it. Tornadoes, you're up in the sky. That's air. There's one we're in a mine. That one makes sense. Like, that makes sense, but I don't know what the rest of this actually has to do with Earth. I mean, truthfully, I don't know what exactly you would do to make levels based around Earth. But this happens quite a lot in this game. Like, there is a water level in the fire area. Now, I may be misremembering here, but last I checked, water puts out fire. That seems to be how I remember things going down. So that seems a little bit backwards to me. Anyway, we've got the wizards. Where are the lizards? Well, in truth, there's only one lizard in this level. And it's a dragon! It's a fire-breathing dragon. He only breathes fire at the end. As with Crash 2 and 3, don't worry if you miss a box, the dragon breaks them for you and they still count. Just really get disappointed about the invincibility. You don't go very fast, your hitbox isn't extra large, and it doesn't last very long. That is a very terrifying looking dragon. Look at that face! This thing is ugly. If the dragon breaks the crash crate though, you don't get the extra life. You think now we get the idea to breathe fire, but apparently not. Right, this section, other than that one crash crate, is all nitros. They're back in full force. But one thing that I definitely love about this level, and so many others, this game's soundtrack is freaking incredible. I adore this soundtrack so much. They go for a more atmospheric sort of soundtrack compared to the previous games. Which Crash 1 kind of did. They made it more catchy and goey in Crash 2. Because levels like Slippery Climb and later Stormy Ascent, they went for more ambience rather than like actual music, and I love them. Like, I love Slippery Climb's like music, if you can call it that. But I didn't even like that they did make it more catchy and give it more to it in the Insane Trilogy. I actually don't like that version very much. Because it does, it's really spooky in the original, and it kind of ruined it a bit. But this, oh, this music is just so good, and so many levels have great music. I love this, I love Compactor Reactor, I love Arctic Antics. The final boss theme is great. I will say, they reuse Crash 3's main theme while you're in the warp room and on the title screen, and that I don't think it's as good. For starters, they take away my favourite part of the tune, the bit that goes they took that part out, which is a shame. Anyway, this death route is definitely more difficult than the first one. Even though this could be the first one, there's nothing stopping you. But what I always do, go to the end, pass the death route, and then hit the nitro switch crate at the end, grab the gem, and then backtrack. I don't even know if there's actually nitro crates in this death route. I always do it that way. you grab the green gem. Which, spoiler warning, we're not actually going to get to the level with the green gem platform until the final level of the game. Well, the final level of the main game. We collect it in level 4. We don't see it till level 25. Right. So yeah, 2 death roots in the first chamber. The death roots are always where you find the coloured gems in this game. Like it's very simply done. Death root, coloured gem. Simple as that. You know, in Crash 2, the coloured gems were found in various ways. There was the level where you had to go up the stream before the time limit ran out. There was one where you had to jump on some fake nitro crates. Coco, shut up. God, this level's really loud. And this is without the Gamecube version sound issues. I mean, you can hear it there from the, like, I think it's the sounds of the other vehicles. It's like a woof, woof kind of sound. It's so loud on the Gamecube and it's constant. And there's, however, you got all of the other coloured gems. In Crash 1, they were nothing special. Well, there was a level where you had to, Turtle Woods, yeah, I mentioned this earlier. Don't break a single box in the level. And stuff like that. Anyway, this Tornado Alley is based off of... It was Bye Bye Blimps and whatever the other plane level was called in Crash 3. You shoot the other planes down. You shoot them a bit, they'll get a little bit of fire coming out the back. Once they have a big bit of fire coming out of the back, then they will gradually start descending to the ground and explode. Don't worry, the pilots are fine, because the pilots are actually Cortex's other minions. You've got Engine, Dingodile, Tiny, Entropy. They're all flying these things, and they're kamikaze pilots. They will fly right into you, but they're perfectly fine. If they do fly into you, it's about a quarter of damage, 25%. Just fly around, break all of the balloons. You can break the boxes as well, or they'll just fall to the ground, and that counts as well. Healing balloons fill up 25% of your health. But the guys flying around aren't nearly as aggressive as the planes trying to shoot you down in the Crash 3 levels. When I first played Crash 3, I hated the plane levels. I thought they were extremely difficult. I now know that you got to like spin out of the way, which you can do here. It looks a bit weird because the camera is constantly behind you as you do it, but you can do it. But there's really no point. They aren't nearly as aggressive. But the other thing with Wrath of Cortex is it brings in a gimmick level, but then that gimmick is never used again, which is kind of strange. Like, what? I mean, we do get the glider come back. No, actually, I'm wrong. There is another level with it, kind of.
Oh, I'm gonna shake, rattle, and roll your Bandicoot butt.
Okay. Yeah, there is another level that's like that. It's because you're not in the same vehicle, but it controls exactly the same. That's what I'm thinking of. There are very, very few levels in this game which are just pure platforming, with no other gimmicks or anything like that. We've already done 2 of them, and I want to say there's 9. Out of 30 levels, I think there's only 9 or so where you're actually just on foot with nothing else. Like this level is mostly platforming. But the first half, well not half, like the first quarter of the level is this minecart. This Temple of Doom minecart section. Which is fun, don't get me wrong, but you know, this is still another gimmick. Oh, look, all that means just there. It's got a gold gem on the front of it, which I think is supposed to look like a golden nugget. I sense another path that we're not going to be getting to for a very long time. Because that gold gem is in the 5th warp room. Right, the annoying thing here is Aku does tend to get in your way. It's like, Aku, I'm trying to see where I'm going. You can't adjust the speed of this thing. Hold up, you go faster. This is just your standard speed, and then if you hold down, you'll go slower. I highly recommend doing that when you go in on that other route. Again, the music's fantastic. And there we go. So the 5th level of every warp room has this sort of like big factory sort of appearance. I don't know why the fifth level for all 5 chambers is like this. Well, not so much the 5th chamber, but for each elemental, the first 4 chambers, they're all like this. I just couldn't explain why. Also, these bad guys right here are no threat whatsoever. Look at these guys just throwing their exploding balloons. Hey, I'm not even gonna bother to kill them. They're kind of just there doing their jobs. You almost feel bad for doing so. Some of these are conveyor belts that do send down some fiery giant raisins. This is really the closest you're ever going to get to the elemental of Earth in this entire thing. Yeah, these guys are kind of like the ones with the flamethrowers in Crash 3. But they're still pretty pathetic. Yeah, like I said, the slide jump's a little bit more awkward to control here. So you're carrying quite a bit more momentum when you're using it. Down the jump button for that bouncy box. Well, or you could probably just use your super jump. That probably works as well. Christ, and I thought it looked painful for Mario. If you spin into the bouncy box, you won't get any Wumpa fruit. So you do want to bounce on it all 5 times. These are the parts that I get tense on. These bits right here, because there is another issue with Wrath of Cortex and bouncy boxes. Now, in Crash 1 and 2, you bounce on these things 10 times. You get 1 Wumpa fruit for each bounce. To make it a little bit easier with Crash 3, well, a little bit faster I should say, you bounce on it 5 times, but you get 2 Wumpa fruit for each bounce. That applies here as well. But, on a number of occasions, the box likes to just randomly break prematurely, like you can bounce on it 2 times. But you're not expecting it to break it, you're expecting to bounce off of it 5 times. And I have had more than my fair share of deaths because of that, most of them in this level. In fact, it happened to me during the second attempt at this. Whoops. Yeah, just, you're supposed to crouch, then jump, then crouch underneath those lasers. You got these crushers. Don't hit the crusher from underneath. Like, if I was to jump when I'm underneath it, the bottom of the crusher, even when it's up in the air, still hurts you. I don't know why, but it does. Yeah, it's like one of these then broke early. Like, it broke after just 2 bounces. And I died, and I've died in this one section right here on quite a few occasions because of it. Because the box isn't supposed to break that early. You can just run under these lasers, they're completely harmless. Obviously not that one, but that first set of lasers you can just run right underneath them and you'll be perfectly fine. Alright, and that is all 5 crystals. I thought the reason we had to travel back in time in Crash 3 is because we'd already collected all the crystals in modern day. But I don't know. I can't work out if we're travelling back in time or not. We do go to a medieval castle, we go to the Ice Age where there's mammoths. But plenty of other things just seem to be modern day, so I have no idea. But as with Crash 3, I can't remember if Crash 2 did it, we can't go back into the other levels until we've faced off against the boss. It's time for Rumble in the Rocks.
Well, well. Looks like the Bandicoot's been busy collecting crystals. I warned you, Bandicoot.
Finally, I get to wrap my fingers around your puny orange neck.
Crunch. Crash doesn't have a neck. But neither do you. Why don't the Bandicoots in this world have necks? Yeah, our first boss. So, Crunch is every single boss on this game. And I have nothing to complain about that. Because I actually like that. A lot of people really don't like that Crunch is the boss for every single chamber. But I don't really have an issue with it. I have many issues with this boss. But actually using Crunch, I don't mind that. It actually makes him feel like more of a threat. But everybody preferred it how... Everyone seems to prefer how in the other games you had all these different villains, which was fine. And as we'll see later on, they've kind of just now done nothing more than obstacles now. And we've seen that they fly around during Tornado Alley or in some of the later atmosphere levels are just there to sort of nudge you out of the way. They're pathetic, yes. And people don't like seeing their beloved characters reduced to nothing but that, as a minor obstacle. I, however, don't really care. Partly because I didn't grow up with the previous games. And partly just because I don't really find them to be... They don't really do much in the other games anyway. They do exactly what the elementals have been doing here. They'll speak to you when you begin a level. You begin a certain level, they'll speak to you, and that's it. Then you have a boss fight with them. That's it. They've never left any impression on me at all. Not even Entropy. And he's the one that created all of that time travel stuff. And then he only becomes the third boss. He's not even the final boss or anything. So what you got to do here is you got to hit all of the balls. Crunch will hit them as well, but they'll become fiery, and that does hurt you. If Crunch hits you, you'll lose control for a little bit, and your health will be going down. You want to try and make sure that he doesn't launch you up the ramp, because then the fire doesn't go away until you land on the ground again. You can lose a lot of health like that. Managed to do this one pretty quickly, but trying to hit all 4 of the balls can take forever. Because you are constantly... It's a ball. A bowl, I should say, not a ball. It's a bowl that you're in. It's always a slope. So you don't have like full control over your movement. If Crunch hits a rock, it catches fire. It will go back eventually, or you can just hit it yourself, but you'll lose health. That 4th one can take a long time. In fact, that probably is the worst boss in the game. The second one's close, but I can't really pick between them. Anyway, yeah, that's it. That's the first boss.
Cortex! When are you and that super weapon of yours going to put an end to that interfering Bandicoot? You are beginning to test my patience! I'm working on it, Uka-Uka. Listen, Crash, you may have outsmarted Rok-o, but there are 3 more elemental masks where he came from. And just as luck would have it, they are all significantly more powerful. Ha! I have no doubt that the water elemental, Wawa, will make sure you never see the light of day.
Yeah, the water boy and I are gonna take you out. Ooh, I'm gonna rip you limb from limb.
Alright, I don't know how they're communicating with me, but yeah, that is the end of the first chamber. So next up, we're going to be taking on Wawa, the water elementals. So I will see you guys then.